Hello, I'm Tim Smith with Gettysburg History, and welcome to an episode of Monuments Monday on a rather overcast Monday. So today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the 153rd Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry. And this is one of those units that was a 9-month unit. It was organized in October of 1862, and the service of this unit would be ended on July 24th, 1863, a few weeks after the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, this is one of those regiments that's all from one place. This is known as the Northampton County Regiment. And there's no doubt about it, this unit is filled with Pennsylvania Germans. And I think it's interesting that a lot of times we talk about Germans in the Battle of Gettysburg in the 11th Army Corps, but we're talking about German immigrants from Germany that came into this area of the United States in the 1840s and the 1850s. But these are Pennsylvania Germans whose ancestors came into the country early on and helped to establish Pennsylvania. And I think there's a big difference between Pennsylvania Germans and German Germans. This was a rather large regiment, having 569 officers and men at the Battle of Gettysburg. And they were commanded by Major John Frederick Fruoff, probably massacring that name, who was born in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and was a lawyer in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, prior to the war. And he had actually been slightly wounded at Chancellorsville. The unit suffered heavily here on July 1st. They suffered casualties also on July 2nd. They had 23 men killed, 142 wounded, and 46 missing during the retreat through the town. This monument here was one of those that was dedicated on Pennsylvania Day, September 11th, 1889. And the monument was actually made from Vermont granite by the Reigate Granite Company of Caledonia County, Vermont. Perhaps you know Thaddeus Stevens was born in Caledonia County, Vermont. The dedication speech, one of the speeches given by a guy named William Beidelman. And in his speech, he said something very interesting. This beautiful monument, which we dedicate this day, will, as the years roll on, tell the story of what you did here. And it will serve to keep green the memories of those of our comrades that fell here. And when we are no longer, and the last one of us shall be gathered with the grand army beyond the grave, and none of us are left to talk about Gettysburg, this marble shaft will remain to tell the story. And I think that's just an excellent sentiment. So this unit, as part of the 11th Army Corps, was brought out here north of the town and halted near the almshouse. And they mentioned in their account they're at the barn of the almshouse when they drop their knapsacks. And the major steps up and gives a speech about how he knows that they're only in service for another 2 weeks. So it'd be no dishonor if someone doesn't want to join in the fight. But the unit then proceeded out here. A couple companies were thrown out as skirmishers along Rock Creek, and this unit bore the attack from Dole's Georgia Brigade and Gordon's Georgia Brigade, and were driven back across these open fields to the town. We have an excellent view at the Adams County Historical Society, given to us by one of our members, of the field from here across to the edge of town at the time where the wounded and killed of this unit must have laid thick after the battle. So on the corner of Stratton Street and East High Street is the Trinity United Church of Christ. At the time of the battle, this is the German Reformed Church, and this was used as a hospital for elements of the 11th Army Corps. And we have a very interesting account from a guy named Reuben, I'm assuming his name is Roche or Rush. And feel free to correct my pronunciations of any of these German names in the comments. But he was with Company F. He was wounded in the first day's battle, and he managed to hobble all the way back to town to this hospital. And at the time of the Civil War, this building was right at the southeastern edge of the town, looking across a valley that led to Cemetery Hill. And he probably was unaware of it at the time, but his comrades that had made it through the first day's fight were being attacked by the Louisiana Tigers and were just a short distance away from him. And from the window of this church, which of course is today it's a more modern church has been added onto, but from the window of the church, he watched the attack and he described it in the regimental history. This was a very interesting sight to me, for I was sitting back and looking on. No one can see much of a fight while he's in it. To see grape and canister cut gaps through ranks looks rough. I could see heads, arms, and legs flying amid the dust and the smoke. It reminded me much of a wagon load of pumpkins drawn up a hill and the end gate coming out and the pumpkins rolling and bounding down the hill. This charge was made by Early's division of Ewell's Corps and was led by the famous Louisiana Tigers. And he describes how just before the attack, he looked out the window and he saw them taking the tops off of large barrels and handing cups of whiskey around to give the men some courage in the attack. You know, one of the greatest views of the battlefield from the edge of the town is here, just in front of the German Reformed Church. Again, we're at the southeast corner of the town, and you can look across the valley that was occupied by the Louisiana Tigers and North Carolina Tar Heels on the evening of July 2nd, and look right up to Cemetery Hill, which today is marked by the light blue water tower. And I should mention that during the fighting, there were Confederate sharpshooters in the German Reformed Church, in the high school and on the roof of the High Street School, I should say, and behind the wall of the jail. And I'll show a picture from the jail wall looking towards Cemetery Hill. And it's interesting that this alley in front of us is called Wall Alley because of the wall of the jail that used to be here at the time of the battle and prior to that. But you got an excellent view. So this is a great place to come out to and explore the battle. So on July 2nd, the 153rd Pennsylvania was part of the force of the 11th Army Corps that was placed at the base of East Cemetery Hill along the old Baltimore Shippensburg Road. And J. Howard Wirt wrote a little bit about it. Along this fence, we find the handsome tablet of the 153rd Pennsylvania of the 1st Brigade, 1st Division, 11th Army Corps. And the monument is 6 feet in height, or near about, and it's made of Quincy, Massachusetts granite. The top is the arch-shaped, centered with the keystone, beneath of which is the 11th Corps insignia. And this monument was dedicated on July 1st, 1884. Immediately after the ceremonies of the 27th Pennsylvania Monument, which was up on top of Cemetery Hill. You might be able to look out through the trees and see the light blue water tower and see that we're just a little bit south and east of the light blue water tower on Cemetery Hill. On July 1st, according to the dedication ceremony of this monument by Lieutenant J. Clyde Miller, on July 1st, 1863, after being double-quicked through the town, they deposited knapsacks at the county almshouse and went into action near Rock Creek and lost heavily. On the evening of the 2nd, they were in the thickest of the fight in repelling the attack of the brigade of Hoke and Hayes's brigade, and again lost heavily. The entire loss of the regiment in 2 days was over 300, including a considerable number of men taken prisoner on the first day. I also wanted to mention that there are several photographs of this monument in a slightly different position. And after reading the minutes of the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association and looking at these photographs, what becomes obvious is this road today that we refer to as Wainwright Avenue is not along the course of the old Baltimore-Shippensburg Road exactly. That road was on the other side of the stone fence, on the other side of the lane. And then there was the lane, and there was another stone fence on the other side of that. And this monument originally was somewhere over here where the avenue now is, along this stone wall. And there's a mention in the minutes of the GBMA that they don't exactly own the property where this monument sits. So eventually they take this property, they buy this property, they put in this avenue, and then they move the monument to this location. So this is one of those moved monuments on the battlefield that we talk about. It's interesting also, if you look at photographs, that the monument to the 14th Indiana was originally along this stretch of the road also. So there's interesting talk in the minutes of the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association that perhaps they will put all the regiments in line of battle down here that were involved in the second day's fight. And the 14th Indiana Monument was already down here, and they were going to move the 4th Ohio Monument down near it, and I suspect the 7th West Virginia. But instead, they decided to move the 14th Indiana Monument from this location to the top of the hill. And I think that was done in like 1890. Definitely, this Wainwright Avenue was placed in at a slightly different location from the original avenue prior to the photograph of this monument being recorded in 1898. And the last stop on our video today is the Pennsylvania Monument, dedicated in 1910. And I think if you are studying the battle, it's good to just come up here and study the role of one unit in the battle. Like today, we covered the 153rd Pennsylvania. I also recommend visiting the National Cemetery and visiting soldiers that are buried there from that unit. But the 153rd Pennsylvania, as we mentioned, they have over 500 men in the unit. So on the Pennsylvania Monument, whereby the average size is 300, and they can fit all those names on one plaque on the monument, the 153rd Pennsylvania has 2 plaques here. And as I mentioned, they're all from Northampton County, and they're mostly, if not all, Pennsylvania Germans. So it is a really interesting exercise to come here and look at all the Pennsylvania German names. And I wanted to mention that there are some interesting articles from the newspapers from Eastern Pennsylvania that talk about this unit's service in the war. And one obituary I found was for Henry William Annaxt, And if there's someone from Northampton County who knows someone named Anangst, tell me in the comments if I'm even coming close to pronouncing it correctly. But according to this obituary, during the Civil War, he enlisted in Company C, 154th Pennsylvania Volunteers. It's actually the 153rd. Famous Northampton County Regiment, and fought with the Army of the Potomac. With him in the same company were his two brothers. In the first day's fight at Gettysburg, Mr. Anangst got a rebel bullet through his right shoulder. His brothers fared little better, for all three of the Anangst soldiers were wounded at Gettysburg. Now, he died in 1903 and is buried in Northampton County. He died in Hellertown. But if you look at the company here, see, you can see on the monument Henry W. Anangst and Edward Anangst. And there's a couple other Anangsts in other companies here on the monument also. But again, it's one of my favorite regiments to talk about here. You can come here and find your favorite Pennsylvania German name, like Amandus Jans or Rudolf Schmetzel. Lots of Schaefers on the plaque also. But it's really an interesting exercise. And you know what? I think to end the video today, I'm going to go eat some shoe fly pie, because there's nothing I like better than lard with molasses and sugar on top. Okay, that's good enough.
If you liked the video, I mean, we don't have to.
No, I missed that, didn't I? Okay. And one other thing for homework. And someone mentioned in the comments last week that they just love when I give them homework. I want you to find the left flank marker for the 153rd Pennsylvania near Barlow's Knoll. It's not easy to find. And remember, if you like all the content that we've been putting up on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications bell if you'd like to learn about more of our videos.